Hello, I am Xarkun, and this is World of Warships Legends. Today I present to you the return of the heavy, legendary tier American cruiser USS Des Moines. But, in this case, it's not being driven by me. Instead, it's being driven by one of my very own channel members, Legendary V19. So this is a community replay. And I think it's a pretty good one. Legendary V19 is going to have an excellent game in the Des Moines, and I think his gameplay here is going to exemplify a virtue that cruiser commanders might want to take into account while they're playing cruisers. The thing that Legendary V19 is going to demonstrate, especially early on in this game, is a level of patience. And I think patience can often be rewarded in this game, and you'll see that reflected in Legendary V19's score on the leaderboard when this game is complete. But let's take note of his deployment here as he approaches the Alpha cap shortly after the start of the game. Notice he's taken up position by this island, so he is concealed from any of the enemy ships beyond it. At the same time, he also can't see any enemy ships that are beyond that island. There's a destroyer, a blue destroyer in the center of the map, that would potentially be in a position to spot enemy ships near their spawn, but he either hasn't gotten close enough or the enemy ships haven't pushed in far enough. So there's a Vanguard that was briefly spotted there as the friendly destroyer pushes into the Bravo cap, and it looks like there might have been some hesitation on the part of Legendary's blue team members here. We can see two battleships approaching his position from behind, a Brandenburg and another one whose name I didn't catch. Meanwhile, the cap right in front of Legendary V19 is starting to turn red, and a Massachusetts, or rather a Montana, is pushing right into that cap. Now, obviously, the presence of that Montana is a threat to Legendary V19. The Montana is armed with 12 16-inch guns, which can overmatch the bow armor of the Des Moines, and also, I think, its side armor. So it's not like Legendary V19 can just push out here right away, despite the fact that the Friesland is spotted. In fact, I think Legendary V19 is spotting the Friesland himself with use of his sonar, which you can see he has running. So obviously his goal is going to be able to take out the Friesland as quickly as possible. The Friesland is the only destroyer on the enemy team. He's pushed in far, and now his position is revealed thanks to Legendary V19's spotting. He's taking some fire from the friendly Brandenburg, and he's smoking up, but notice he's still caught in that sonar, so he's still spotted. The smoke screen's not going to help him. He doesn't appear to be aware that Legendary V19 is actually here until Legendary V19 opens fire and begins to remove the Friesland's hit points in very, very quick and rapid succession. The Friesland is now dispatched. That is Legendary V19's first kill of the game, and there are a lot of enemy ships over here around this island. So what are we going to do? Well, we're certainly not going to push straight into a Montana and two cruisers. Doing so would be suicidal, and I think a lot of cruiser players in situations like this, after killing that destroyer, would seem to think that the X button or the A button on the throttle is the only way to command the ship to go in any particular direction. This is not true. You can, of course, reverse, and in a situation like this, where the option is between reversing behind an island to shield yourself from the vision and the firepower of at least 3, potentially even 4 enemy ships, or pushing straight into those ships, obviously you want to reverse behind that island and take up the position here. Now, Legendary V19 is going to remain in this position for a time, but that's okay. This is, of course, a very effective way to play a cruiser like a Des Moines, which, even though it's a heavy cruiser with 203mm guns, it has the fire rate of a much lighter cruiser. The guns reload in, what is that, maybe 4.5, 5 seconds, something along those lines. So they fire very quickly. They're capable of putting out a lot of DPM, and the shell arcs themselves are very, very floaty, and they go up high into the sky before coming down and crashing onto their targets. So they're very good at lobbing over islands, which is exactly what Legendary V19 is doing here. A lot of times you'll see frustrated battleship players, like this Montana, decry this kind of gameplay as cowardly or somehow unfair, but that is not the case. This is exactly where cruisers like the Des Moines are most effective, and any Battleship player who complains about getting HE spammed by a cruiser that is sitting behind an island, well, I'm sorry to report to you that I think that Battleship player is merely declaring that they are in fact a potato. And a good thing to point out here, at least in my opinion, I think, is notice how stationary that Montana is. If you've watched any of my videos with Battleship advice over the past couple of months, you'll note that I've been harping very, very hard on not pushing bow in toward a superior number of enemies, stopping and then reversing out of the way, because it compromises your maneuverability. That Montana's choice to just sort of sit there stationary in the water and take all that HE spam from the Des Moines, that is why he is Legendary V19's second kill ribbon for the game. More effective way to deal with HE spam that's coming from behind an island, like the kind that Legendary V19 was raining down on that Montana, is simply to engage your ship's engine, turn around, and begin to kite away. You want to preserve your hit points to some degree in a battleship if you're in a situation where you're getting rained on by HE spam and there's nothing you can do about it in the sense that you can't hit the ship that is shooting at you. Then the proper course of action is to disengage, try to reposition, and come at the situation from a different angle, both literally and figuratively. So, just a little piece of Battleship advice that I thought I would throw in there. In the meantime, Legendary V19's team has lost 4 ships, and the enemy team has only lost 2, although it looks like they're about to lose this Vanguard out there. Yep, he goes down to the Kagaro's torpedoes. So now they've lost 3, whereas the blue team has lost 4. The blue team is ahead on points, thanks to having taken the Alpha Cap and the Bravo Cap a little earlier on in the game, but the enemy is trying to take that Bravo Cap back. Looks like they'll probably succeed at doing so. And I think blue ships are sort of going to start dropping left and right here. While Legendary V19 has been patient throughout the entirety of this game and remained in essentially the same position, honestly there was no reason for him to push out very aggressively prior to this point. Well, now he's going to begin pushing out and trying to come to the targets. That's another thing to keep in mind, which is don't push unless you have to. In this situation, well, the enemy team is now ahead on points. They have more ships. It is 4 blue ships versus 6 reds. Things need to be done if this game is not going to turn into a loss. Looks like the majority, or at least half, of the remaining enemy forces are somewhere to, I assume that is the south of the Bravo Cap, and there one is spotted for us. It's a Mogami, so Legendary V19 begins to open up. Can be a little bit difficult to hit maneuverable cruisers at longer ranges with the Des Moines HE, but of course that HE, when it does hit, can be quite effective. The Mogami is maneuvering in sort of a minimal sense. Doesn't look like he's going to be that hard to pin down. The question is, where are the rest of the enemy ships? We see a Hipper inside of the Bravo Cap. Looks like he is being spotted by the Kagero, and the Kagero might be getting too close for comfort to that Hipper. The Kagero is a very valuable member of this team, by the way. He is the only destroyer left in this game, and you're going to see his contribution to the blue team in stark relief once you see the leaderboard. He's actually going to have a fantastic game, an excellent game, and his spotting is providing vital intelligence to Legendary V19. It's telling him exactly where that Hipper is, and exactly where the Bismarck over there is as well. For the moment, though, Legendary V19 is not in necessarily any kind of rush to get out here right in front of the Hipper and the Bismarck. We certainly don't want to be pushing out into a location where we're going to get shot at by multiple ships when we're playing a cruiser, or really any ship for that matter. I think that's something people don't take into account often enough. Even in a battleship, you don't want to push into a superior number of enemy ships where all of them can focus you down at the same time. No matter what ship you're in, there is no ship in the game that can stand up to sustained, focused firepower from multiple ships. But so long as Legendary V19 hangs around here, the Mogami is retreating very far away. At some point soon, I don't think he's even going to be able to hit Legendary V19. And the Hipper is pushing out alone without the assistance of that Bismarck as the Kagero closes in toward the Bravo cap, theoretically to get torpedoes on that Bismarck. This means it's just a 1v1 fight between Legendary V19 and this Hipper. And I know a lot of people out there say that the Hipper is such a good, fantastic Tier 7 cruiser. I don't mean to offend anybody when I say this, but I don't see it. I've always thought it was a mediocre ship, and I think people overrate it too highly. A Hipper, in this situation, when it's pushing into a Des Moines, stands absolutely no chance. It's got no tools whatsoever to deal with it. It can try to shoot high explosive at the Des Moines. It can try to light it on fire. It can try to whittle away the Des Moines hit points. No matter what it does, it's not going to work. The Des Moines is going to out-DPM the Hipper. Its HE is better than the Hipper's HE, and so long as this Hipper is pushing into the Des Moines, he's not really going to be able to effectively use his torpedoes, which is his calling card. Either he can get a broadside on the Des Moines with his AP and do a lot of damage, or he can use his torpedoes. I think based on what we've seen so far, Legendary V19 is not going to present broadside to this Hipper, at least not willingly. So the Hipper is pushing in, and he is just slowly perishing as a result, just sort of whittling away his hit points. Now, he is doing a fair amount of damage to Legendary V19, but ultimately the damage that Legendary V19 is doing to him outweighs that damage. The trade is very much in the favor of the Des Moines in this situation. In fact, it's so in favor that it looks like Legendary V19, in part to prevent himself from running into the island over there, and in part to get all his guns on target, turns, and with that, the Hipper is dispatched for the third kill in the game, and that brings the team levels down to parity. It is now 3 versus 3, but importantly, the blue team still has a full health Kagero, and at this point, a half health Des Moines. So the remaining ships on the enemy team are 1 cruiser and 2 battleships. Blue team absolutely has the advantage here, especially if the Kagero pushes into that Bravo cap and flips it. Meanwhile, the enemy Montana, I believe, just demolished the last remaining blue battleship, so it's only the Kagero and the Des Moines. The enemy team is ahead on points by a little bit less than, or a little bit more rather than 100 points. Presuming that the Kagero can flip this cap, they're going to start acquiring an income of points from that cap, and it's just this Mogami and whatever that battleship over there near the Bravo cap is in Iowa. And in fact, the Kagero is able to take care of the Iowa no problem. He was on low health. It only took 1 torpedo. So as far as we can tell, that Kagero should be able to flip the cap, hopefully before the Yamato enters it. And then at that point, I think this Kagero has demonstrated that he's no fool. He is not going to allow himself to be destroyed by that Yamato, at least not yet. And I assume he's probably going to try to get torpedoes on that Yamato. Firing at the Mogami seemed to be like a little bit of a fruitless endeavor there, although Legendary V19 does land 2 Citadels with the Des Moines' mind-blowingly excellent AP, so I think he might have been persuaded that maybe he should continue to fire at that Mogami. I think he was turning his attention toward that Yamato to assist his teammate with the Kagero. The Kagero, by the way, is providing spotting of this Mogami right now, and Legendary V19 is actually concealed. He should only need a couple of high explosive, or rather armor-piercing salvos. Okay, I guess he just needed 1. There's 2 more Citadels. The Mogami goes down. That point puts them ahead on points, and even though there is a small points discrepancy between the enemy points and the blue team's points, I don't think they have enough time with 30 seconds left on the clock to overtake the balance of points that the blue team currently enjoys. So essentially, that means as of this moment, this game is won, thanks in part to the Kagero and in part to Legendary V19. These are the two ships that had the most battle impact on this game, no doubt about it. The leaderboard is going to show that, and hopefully I've done a fairly good job of elucidating, at least somewhat, what that battle impact was during the course of this game. In any case, the Des Moines remains a highly effective cruiser. Their base XP scores blow all the competition out of the water, each of them over 3k base XP, and they're only 2 random team members together. They're not even divisioned, which is nice to see. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.